On a kind, nice summer, on July 19, 2018, Altoona Police, Iowa, received a 911 call about an unresponsive child.
A September trial date has been set for an Iowa woman accused of using pajama pants to strangle her 5-year-old daughter back in July. 23-year-old Kelsie Thomas of Ottumwa pled not guilty to charges of first-degree murder and child endangerment resulting in death. Police and medics were sent to Thomas's home in Ottumwa on July 19, 2018. Her daughter Chloe was pronounced dead.
In 2018, a few months after Kelsie Thomas was arrested, there was an actual trial for the case, but then there was a mistrial.
The defense realizes that the jury has put in a lot of time and effort into their deliberations, considering communication.
What's crazy about this whole case is that right after Kelsie Thomas was arrested, she even confessed the crime to law enforcement back in 2018. In the confession letter, Thomas shared she had always loved her daughter and was sorry.
To agree or to move to dismiss this jury on the basis of a mistrial.
There have been so many cases where the mother kills the child, and there have been some cases where even the mother gets away with it. One famous example, Casey Anthony. She killed her child, allegedly killed her child, and she got away with it. Another example, although she didn't get away with it, Andrea Yates. She confessed to drowning her 5 children, ages 6 months to 7 years, in a bathtub of her Houston, Texas home. Whole point I'm trying to make is this seems like a common occurrence. It seems like it happens a lot, and there have been people who've gotten away with it, and there's people who keep doing it. So it just makes me wonder, why would a parent want to kill their daughter or their son? I'm sure there are so many reasons, but no reason is big enough for you to want to take the life of somebody who probably haven't been in this world for that long.
We're following a new case on the network that's in jury selection right now out of Iowa. A mother, Kelsie Thomas, is on trial for the murder of her 5-year-old daughter. This is devastating. She was found hanging by the neck from a pair of pajama pants in her closet. Thomas says this was an accident and her daughter was trying to make a swing in her closet, but prosecutors say this was no accident.
The mistrial happened because she claimed it was an accident and the jury bought it. Not the jury, some of the jury bought it, so they couldn't come to an agreement if to convict her or not to convict her. But obviously it's America, the land of the free, and the child wasn't free but dead. So there was going to be a retrial, and there was a retrial.
State of Iowa versus Kelsie Ray Thomas, defendant. Criminal cause number FECR 011664. Trial information reads as follows. Comes now Ruben Neff as Wapello County Attorney and Maureen F. Hughes as Assistant Iowa Attorney General. And in the name of and by the authority of the State of Iowa, accuses Kelsie Ray Thomas of the following crimes. Count 1, murder in the first degree. Said Kelsie Ray Thomas on or about the 19th day of July 2018 in the County of Wapello and the State of Iowa, having malice aforethought, killed Cece, a child, while committing an assault, and the death occurred under circumstances manifesting an extreme indifference to human life, all in violation of Section 707.1 and 707.2e of the Iowa Code. Count 2, child endangerment resulting in death. Child endangerment resulting in death committed as follows. Said Kelsie Ray Thomas on or about July 19, 2018 in the County of Wapello and State of Iowa, being a parent of CC by an intentional act or series of intentional acts, used unreasonable force, torture, or cruelty against CC resulting in the death of CC in violation of Section 726.6 subsection 4 of the Iowa Criminal Code. True information, the defendant has pled not guilty to these charges.
Before we get to the actual information of the case, let's talk about why parents kill their children, especially why mothers kill their children. According to a sociologist from Texas Tech, which I'm not going to mention her name, most parents, most mothers especially, kill their children because of all the societal pressures on them. of how to actually be a good mom and what to do to be a good mom, and how they are scrutinized if they don't conform to what society view as a good way to look after your child.
Tom McAndrew, Aaron Thomas, Jill Gardner, and Brian Cutler. As to evidence, in lieu of resubmitting a significant number of exhibits throughout...
The sociologist specifically stated that the struggle of being a good mother is common to all mothers and requires much more time and resources than most mothers have available to them. So when they don't have the resources and they don't have the time and they want to live their life, they just end up taking the life of their child just to eliminate the child. And I agree with her to some extent, but she also went on to say that these people are not actually evil people, nor are they good people. But I just feel like you should realize that these people are evil people. I mean, they might not have wanted to actually kill their child, but at the end of the day, they did. And that is bad, and that makes them a terrible person.
In voir dire, ladies and gentlemen, he indicated that the circumstances, the context of Kelsie Thomas's confession would be important for you to know. And Dr. Brian Cutler is going to give you a lot of that context. And context is important. I think both sides agree on that. And because context is important, it'd be important for you folks to know that the evidence will show that when Kelsie Thomas, moments after finding her daughter, called 911, she told the 911 operator what she saw. And then moments after the chaplain at the hospital announced Chloe's death, Kelsie Thomas was whisked away into a private room by another member of law enforcement and asked again what had happened. In the next coming days, the evidence will show, in fact, the next day, that she voluntarily conducted a video walkthrough with the police at their request. That her so-called close cousin, Brittany Johnson, volunteered to surveil and monitor her with no results. And the evidence will show that Kelsie Thomas completely cooperated with every aspect of the police investigation, all the way leading up to her confession. The evidence will show that from the moment she dialed 911, through numerous conversations, through all of this interrogation, her story remained the same until the very end. And all of this, imagine losing your daughter, and then this is what you face. All within a week of losing Chloe. And these pajama pants that you just overheard the state indicate. Kelsie confessed that she strangled Chloe with. You're going to find that throughout those hours and hours and hours of interrogation, I'm estimating maybe 10 or 12 hours of interrogation, investigators were telling Kelsie Thomas, it is impossible. The science tells us those pajama pants could not have made those marks. And so you have to ask yourself, how is it that after hours and hours of telling Kelsie Thomas that these pajama pants could not have created these marks and could not have been the cause of Chloe Chandler's death, then the investigators decide, okay, we'll go ahead and accept that as long as you're confessing.
To cut it short, the defense's whole pretrial argument was that, oh, Kelsie Thomas is innocent. Before proving guilty, you should know that. And oh, also all the evidence the prosecutors have is circumstantial, or they even lied about it. And also, have you seen the little tape of Kelsie Thomas, or have you read the letter of Kelsie Thomas just confessing to all these crimes? It wasn't actually a confession. She was coerced. They forced her to confess, and even the towel she used to strangle the child, That was a lie. So basically, Kelsie Thomas didn't do anything. That was a defense strategy in a pretrial. The funny thing is, everything he just said in a pretrial doesn't necessarily mean Kelsie Thomas didn't kill the child. It just necessarily means that she cared after the child was dead. And I mean, if you kill your child and the cops come to you, before anything, aren't you gonna pretend that you did not kill the child? Aren't you gonna pretend to care?
Learned that Kelsie Thomas confessed. It was then that she made her finding of strangulation. And if that confession, if in your minds, is not valid, if it's not good, and that was the basis of Dr. Kettler's opinion, then that really calls into question everything about the state's case.
Before everything, let's learn about the person on trial. This is Kelsie Thomas, and I'm not going to tell you who she is or what she did or where she's from. Her mom is going to do it.
How old is Kelsie now?
24.
So would it be fair to say she was around 14 years old?
Yes.
And if Kelsie was 14 when you moved, how old would Tyler have been?
15.
You indicated that you actually gave birth to Kelsie here in Ottumwa.
Yes.
And would it be fair to say that you lived in Ottumwa from when Kelsie was 1 till she was 14 and you moved away?
Yes.
When you moved away, did Kelsie move with you?
No.
Why not?
She lived with her dad,
Who's Kelsie's dad?
Larry Matthews.
Does Larry Matthews still live here in Ottumwa?
As far as I know, yes.
At the time that you moved, I know we determined that Kelsie was around 14 years old. Was she in school?
Yes.
What school was she going to?
Evans.
And is that a high school here in Ottumwa?
It's the middle school.
And then at some point, did Kelsie move on to high school?
Yes.
And where did she go to high school?
The Ottumwa High School.
Would you have come back for things like Kelsie's graduation or other school events?
Yes.
And you indicated that you would text almost every day.
Yes.
Would you talk on the phone as well?
Not every day, but close.
Were you with Kelsie when she thought that she might be pregnant?
Yes.
Where were you at with Kelsie?
I believe my mother's house.
Would that be your mother that was here in Ottumwa?
Yes.
How old was Kelsie when she first told you she thought she might be pregnant?
I believe 15.
Did you do anything when she told you that?
No.
Did you do anything to help her find out if she was in fact pregnant?
Yes, I bought the test.
And when you say bought the test, was that a pregnancy test?
Yes.
Were you there with her when she took the pregnancy test?
Yes.
And was Kelsie in fact pregnant?
Yes.
And at that time, where was she going to school at?
I believe the Ottumwa High School.
Did Kelsie then move from Ottumwa in with you?
Yes.
And at that time, where were you living?
I was living in Albion.
Did Kelsie actually enroll in high school in Albion?
Yeah, no, Conrad.
Did Kelsie live with you throughout her pregnancy?
Yes.
And was that the whole time she was pregnant?
Yes.
Did Kelsie actually give birth when she was around 16 years old?
Yes.
And did she have a daughter or a son?
A daughter.
And what was her daughter's name?
Chloe.
And what's Chloe's last name?
Chandler.
Were you there when Chloe was born?
Yes.
What kind of relationship did you have with Chloe?
She was my world.
This line of questioning almost sounds like they're trying to determine whether the mom had something to do with Chloe, or if the upbringing of Kelsie had something to do with her killing her child, or if her mom abused her when she was a kid, that she also decided to abuse her kid. In my opinion, this is basically the defense tactics to divert blame to somebody else other than Kelsie.
Did you notice anything different about, let me take that back. What was Chloe and Kelsie's relationship like? What did you observe?
Typical mother-daughter. relationship.
After Phoenix was born, did you notice anything different?
Yes.
What did you notice?
That she didn't really pay very much attention to Chloe.
And what do you mean by that?
She paid more attention and did things for Phoenix.
Did you ever go to any parties or family parties after Phoenix was born?
Yes.
Did you make any particular observations that happened at any of those family parties?
Yes.
What did you observe?
We were at a birthday party at my niece's house, and nobody was paying attention to where Chloe was until we realized she was down by the pond.
And did that seem unusual to you?
Yes.
When was that birthday party? Do you remember when it was in relation to Chloe's death?
A month before that.
Did you ever make any observations about how Phoenix or Chloe were dressed? Anything about their clothes?
No.
Did you ever have any conversations with Kelsie about Chloe?
Yes.
What kind of things did you talk about relating to Chloe?
She would be having a hard time getting Chloe to listen, and I just told her to try to spend as much time as she could with her.
And why did you tell her that?
Because I thought maybe if she spent more time with her and paid more attention with her, that she would stop being a brat.
Did you ever have a
I think at this time, you know exactly what's going on. So Kelsie somehow had a new child. And after she had a new child, she somehow forgot she had a child already. She stopped caring for Chloe. She stopped paying attention to Chloe. So it just seemed like she was going to kill her. But then again, think about it. If you don't like the kid, send it to your mom. She didn't do that. She instead killed her. I mean, allegedly.
Did you ever see Kelsie interact with her son Phoenix?
Yes.
Was there anything specifically that you noticed when she interacted with both Chloe and Phoenix?
Yes. Her interactions changed when Phoenix came. Phoenix was given ample amounts of attention. He was always clothed nicely, always received more gifts, made sure his plates were made. There was a big difference between the interaction of the two children once Phoenix was born.
Did you know Chloe's father, Stephen?
Yes.
Do you know why Kelsie and Stephen broke up?
I think there was a lot of issues with their relationship. They had a child young. I believe Stephen had affairs, lots of arguments, things of that nature.
Kelsie. Talk about not liking the child's dad, so he decided to just kill the child. As if the child that you hate is her fault that she was brought onto this earth. This is messed up, but let's just listen to what more witnesses or people that know her have to say about her.
I had asked you a question about the female appearing frantic, correct?
Correct.
And that was your observation of her?
Yeah, she was acting frantic, yes.
And was there anything about Kelsie Thomas's demeanor as you observed her that would seem out of sorts or out of the ordinary for the type of situation you were responding to?
It was not.
As you watch this, remember that this is not a case of whether Kelsie Thomas killed her daughter or not. This is a case of whether she did it intentionally or not intentionally. And so far, the testimonies are just showing she might have done it intentionally because she hated the child.
Correct. Did you actually believe that? Did you actually believe that that Kelsie treated Chloe better before Phoenix was born?
No, I don't. No, I don't believe that was a... She treated both kids the same from my perspective.
Okay. Chloe was your stepchild, correct?
Correct.
When you grew up, you grew up a stepchild, correct?
For a period of time.
Okay. Do you recall having a conversation with me in your deposition about that dynamic and how you wanted to make sure that Chloe was not treated like a stepchild?
Objection, improper impeachment.
Sustained.
Do you recall that conversation? Mr.
Objection,
Thomas?
sustained.
Sustained.
Yeah, I do.
So when I sustain an objection, that means you don't respond.
Now, as far as how that day laid out at home, again, that was just all part of a normal routine, correct?
Yes.
And the possibility that Chloe was climbing on something and accidentally hung herself also made sense to you, given that she'd been climbing for a few months before that?
Objection calls for speculation.
Objection overruled. Witness can answer.
At the time, it seemed possible.
Okay, in fact, in your deposition, you told me all that made sense to you at the time, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are you and Kelsie still married?
Legally.
Okay. Shortly after police told you that Kelsie confessed, you stopped having contact with her, isn't that true?
Correct.
You went to Arizona with a different female and your son?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Like the saying goes, people are usually blinded by love and doesn't see what's right in front of their face. It's possible that Kelsie treated Chloe way better when her husband was there. I mean, the husband admitted that he himself was a stepchild when he was young, so that will explain why Kelsie will treat Chloe way better when he's there. But this is all speculation, just a possible reason.
So, when you say the chair was upside down, so like, was that a normal thing for her to climb on it, or?
No, broken? Yeah, it was broke, and she didn't want to give it to the hand. So she wanted to keep it here, so we could put it in there and keep our other, to keep our son from climbing on it, or hurting himself and everything else. So we just put it there.
Out there, like, okay.
And she's
Exposed.
And she's got a cross face in here that she likes to go back. So this closet,
She'll call it.
to hide it,
So generally, she puts it in the closet. Okay. Okay.
It was definitely not something.
The chair and the way that you found it, was that the way it normally is? Like
That's the way it has been since we put it in here.
Okay. Okay.
So she didn't move the chair, it kept staying there.
Okay. And then, when you came in, initially you kind of said you had directed which way she was facing. You didn't bring that in.
Directly, her whole body and her head.
Facing, that'd be south?
Yes.
Okay.
So, just so okay. So we can see where the holder is for that bar. So presumably, it's not right here. Can I walk or help me better understand her body position when you found her?
I mean, she was, her head was unclean.
Okay. Were her feet touching the ground? Not
No.
touching the ground? Okay. So she was suspended. Okay. How close to the top of that?
So I cut this video off a little bit because it's really irrelevant to the case. The whole point of showing this video is to show the jury how Kelsie Thomas acted the day after the whole situation, or a couple of weeks or months. I don't know, I might be wrong. But as you can see, you can't really see the video wall because the video hasn't been released and I'm kind of just still using the court footage. So
Thank you. And folks, I'm almost wrapped up here. There's only a few more points we want to make to help show you that the state just hasn't met their burden in this case. This really isn't a factor any longer, and the reason I'll assert it's really not a factor anymore is because this was not part of Dr. Cavallier's testimony at all. For all that the investigators made a big deal about, well, Kelsie, we didn't find any vomit in the closet, and this really means that somehow you must have strangled her as opposed to hanging. We didn't hear anything like that from Dr. Cavalier. Now, again, since we don't have any medical testimony about this, the defense position about the vomit is really common sense. If Chloe was found hanging in the closet and her neck is impinged, if she had to vomit, nothing's going to be able to come up because her neck is impinged. Once that impingement is taken down and she's laid on the bed, and as Kelsie told officers and investigators several times, when she reached down on her chest to feel if she had a pulse, noticed that she had vomit coming out of her mouth. All of this was consistent with the scene. And absent some medical testimony that you're supposed to find vomit in the closet as opposed to other places, this is just an argument that investigators made to Kelsie Thomas to convince her to confess, that ultimately, as Dr. Cavalier demonstrated by her lack of indicating this was important whatsoever, tells you it's just an argument. And so, like I said, this case, again, reminding you, came to the medical examiner's office as non-suspicious. They conducted DNA testing. None of that helped prove that Kelsie Thomas was responsible for Chloe Chandler's death. They took a look at all the phone logs. Since probably the 90s, electronic media has been a substantial source of information for police. That's almost the first thing they do anymore, is confiscate a person's phone and find out where they've been searching, who they've been talking to. Usually, this is a treasure trove of information for police and investigation, and you heard Saren testify that they didn't find squat. Not a thing. And wouldn't you think that if, as the state alleges, Kelsie Thomas, in a fit of rage, strangled her daughter, I think maybe she wanted to know what to do? You think Kelsie Thomas, the cook at Casey's General Store, is going to be savvy enough or confident in herself enough not to call anybody? Not to Google search on the internet how to make this look like a hanging?
One thing about these cases, it's really hard to identify how someone was feeling when they did something. If they really don't tell you how they were feeling when they did the action, then how exactly are you going to prove that they really did it when they were angry or they really wanted to do it? So the defense is saying, okay, the doctor said Kelsie probably didn't do it. And when the prosecutors looked on Kelsie's phone, they found nothing, which means she probably didn't do it. But the thing is, she doesn't have to search how to strangle a kid. And on top of that, it already seemed like she did kill the child since she says it was an accident. Either she was involved in it or she actively did it. So in my opinion, whatever the defense is saying doesn't really mean Kelsie did not intentionally kill the child. Because how was the doctor going to prove that Kelsie intentionally killed the child? Or how was the other investigator going to prove that Kelsie searched on the phone so she did intentionally kill the child? The only way to actually know if she did intentionally kill the child is by asking people that know her or people that have been around her and knows how exactly she treats the child, which they did and found out. She treated the child really bad because she hated the child's father.
What I say is not evidence. What the defense attorney says is not evidence. So he can get up here and twist what the burden of proof is. But you're going to see, and you already have in the instructions, that our burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. Not all doubt, not beyond a shadow of a doubt, not beyond a scintilla of a doubt, beyond a reasonable doubt. And you do have an instruction to help you with that. The defense also wants to talk about, with Dr. Cutler, confession contamination. So they have to find a way to explain the phone calls in the letter, right? Because it has to be part of this false confession, because it's probably some of the most damning evidence. That letter that she writes, even if you want to believe that she's so coerced in that interview room, she's now by herself for 10 minutes while she's actually writing that letter, thinking about what to write. And we already talked about that letter. That letter that corroborates what her family told you, what she says in those earlier interviews. And then the phone calls. That first intake call is after she was arrested. And she says to her husband, "I'm sorry, you weren't there. I didn't mean to hurt her." And even that one, throw that one out. Because even 24 hours later, Is she still under these coercive tactics? Is she still trying to just say what the police want? At that point, she could have said to her husband, oh my gosh, I falsely confessed. They made me do it. No, at that point, now she's still saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you don't understand. Dr. Cutler told you these tactics that he researches he indicated an innocent or guilty person would confess. He can't give you an opinion on whether or not the defendant was guilty or innocent. But you know, based on all the other evidence that corroborates her confession, that confession was accurate. The defense?
If I personally was to rate both closing arguments, listen, I'm not like a professional or anything, just a regular bystander. But if I was to rate both arguments, I would go with the defense. The defense actually made a really good case and talked about the evidence. I mean, as you can see, there's not really that much evidence in this case. It's just he say, she say. But the defense seemed to have a really constructive argument about why Kelsie Thomas didn't intentionally kill her daughter. The defense did a great job. The prosecutors are somehow in the closing arguments just going with vibes. They're just going with emotion and feeling. And personally, I just feel like that's not a good way to make a case.
The court has heard the statements of the jury and the individual jurors. The court has heard the positions of counsel. The court finds that the jury now has been deliberating for in excess of 14 hours. Their deliberations have occurred over parts of 4 days and have included 2 full days. The court finds, with respect to count 1, which is murder in the first degree, that the jury has deliberated until it satisfactorily appears they cannot agree. So, pursuant to Iowa Rule of Criminal Procedure 2.19, subparagraph 6, I am discharging the jury with respect to count 1, and a mistrial is declared with respect to count 1. The jury is hung. Now, we will move to count 2, which is child endangerment causing death. Would the presiding juror please stand up? Mr. Presiding Juror, has the jury reached a verdict on count 2?
We have.
Is that verdict unanimous?
It is.
Please pass the verdict to the court attendant.
In the Iowa District Court for Wapello County, State of Iowa, plaintiff versus Kelsie Ray Thomas, defendant, criminal number FECR 011664, verdict form count 2. Alternative number 2, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kelsie Ray Thomas, not guilty under count 2. Signed by the presiding juror.
So overall, the case went to the advantage of the defense, just like how I said. Kelsie was completely acquitted of child endangerment in the first trial, and in the other trial there was hung jury, which is basically when the jury doesn't come into agreement of what exactly they want to do. So now, since there was hung jury, it was up to the judge to make a decision, and she acquitted Kelsie of first-degree murder, and also acquitted her again of a lesser included count of second-degree murder, and finally she settled on involuntary manslaughter. So Kelsie Thomas was sentenced to 5 years in prison for fatally strangling her daughter, Chloe Chandler.
Her eyes got really big. Did you hear her stop breathing? No. It's not like Kelsie is just saying whatever they want. They asked her, they introduced so many...
And you want to know the crazy thing? A day after Kelsie Thomas was sentenced to 5 years in prison, yeah, she did go to prison, but a day after she went to prison, she was released. Yes, she was released. Like, she's home right now, probably gonna watch this video at some point, just at some point. But why was she released? She was paroled early from prison. But what do you think about the case? Do you think she did it? Do you think she didn't do it? Why do you think the prosecutors lost the case? Why do you think the defense won the case? And like I said before, a large number of these women beat the case. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you later.